Okay guys, happy Sunday. I am back home. It is about 5:45 in the morning. Last night, Fogo de Chao for my son Lucas's 7th birthday. He's actually 7 today, so we celebrated last night. We spent the day at Legoland, which was a lot of fun. I'd never been there. So it's about 45 minutes from where I drove, and so dogs had to stay home, so I had to come home this morning, let the dogs out, feed the dogs, and then I'm going to head back up to Legoland for round 2. My boy had a little piece of chocolate cake for his birthday. I did not have any this year. Last year I had a piece. This year I didn't have any. I just didn't want to partake, and it was fine. And like I said, I'm on a strict red meat and water routine until World Championships in Paris is fine. So this video for you guys watching is going to be a little bit more serious. It has got some disturbing stuff, so if you're watching with kids, you may want to skip this one, perhaps. I don't think I'll need to cuss or anything. I don't think I will. You never know. Sometimes I drop the occasional cuss word in there, but I don't think I will. But before we get going on that, let's do a couple more, a little bit of another testimonial. So I got this, again, I literally have thousands of these, and so you guys have said you seem to like it, so I'll continue doing those. This is from somebody that said, "Hey Sean, I just started following your page. I'm a long distance runner who has been following a high carb diet for years. I've struggled with poor sleep, severe anxiety, and muscle pain. So severe, I would literally wake up in the middle of the night." I saw an interview with Zach Bitter, and I'm in my first week of high meat, high fat, low carb. My anxiety is gone. My energy has skyrocketed, and I'm running great. Thank you so much for your advocacy. Meat is the way." She goes on to say, "Also, I'm a registered dietitian, and I've suspected for a long time that the traditional food pyramid is bullshit." Oh, sorry, I guess I did cuss. Well, I'm just reading someone else's cuss words. So, "The sad thing is most RDs know it's bullshit, but we are bound by our license to teach it. I offer quote-unquote alternative, i.e. correct views to my patients." So, interesting. Even many of the registered dietitians know they're just telling people BS, which is good to see more people waking up to that. Check out this quick video here. I think it's pretty informative. You guys may be interested in this. This is from the MeatRx research libraries. You can see things are organized by category. We have dozens of categories looking at scientific articles. You can click on any particular link. In this case, I'm going to choose high protein diets. And we'll show what kind of papers we have. We have them categorized, a little summary of what's in the study, a link to the study, and we have literally hundreds and hundreds of citations that are linked to scientific data. So if you want to talk about a topic with someone and you need a place to go for references, our research library at MeatRx.com is a wonderful resource. We are continuously adding to this. Dr. Phil Avadia, who is a cardiothoracic surgeon, is helping us compile this. So thanks again, Phil. This is free to all. So check out MeatRx.com. Okay, like I said, that research library is free to everyone on MeatRx.com. So check it out if you want a bunch of articles to use to persuade, debate, whatever. It's there. We're continuing to build that library. Again, thanks to Dr. Phil Avadia, a cardiothoracic surgeon in Florida, who's also carnivore proponent. We're getting more and more doctors that are carnivore proponents, and we're seeing the community come together. So anyway, that is really cool. Someone asked me about, can you be a certified carnivore coach if you're in another country? And the answer is yes. We have coaches from all over the world. So if that is something you want to do, just head on over to MeatRx.com and sign up. Okay, my book came out a few days ago, and it's been well received so far. People are really enjoying it. When I first turned it into my publisher, I did not have any autobiographical stuff, and they said, "Hey, we really want your story. We want to hear why you decided to become a carnivore, and why are you an advocate?" And so I wrote a lengthy autobiographical piece, and I put a lot of stuff in there that was kind of very real, very probably disturbing for a lot of people, and much of it ended up, they said it was just a little bit too much for a diet book, so it got cut out. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and mention one of those stories here that I had written in the book, which got cut. And so hopefully, and we haven't recorded the audio version yet, and so I'm thinking about, and you guys give me your feedback, what you think. So I was thinking about, I think they're talking about having an actor hired to read it, or maybe I'll read it. or maybe the actual real, but maybe I can interject additional information and put some of these stories in there. Let me know if you guys would find that to be helpful or interesting, and I'll think about doing that. But in 2006, I was 39 years old, getting ready to turn 40. My 40th birthday was going to be a big ski trip with all my buds coming in from all over the country, and that was being set up. And this was my birthday's in January, so January 10th I'll turn 53 this year. But so back, this is, I guess, almost 13 years ago, as I was getting ready to, turn 40, and 40 is a big thing, and you're gonna be celebrating a new decade. Well, I got orders. I was in the Air Force time. I got my orders, said, nope, you're not having your birthday party skiing. You're going to Bagram, Afghanistan. You're going to spend the next 6 months there. And so I spent my 40th birthday kind of by myself, eating a big piece of birthday cake in the dining facility at Bagram, at Bagram in Afghanistan. And so it wasn't quite the birthday party I'd planned, but this was a trip to Afghanistan that was, obviously something I'll never forget. It was a very impactful part of my life. After 3 days of travel, getting from the U.S. to Afghanistan, flying in the middle of the night with the lights turned off from the plane because they shoot at you. Landing, we get off the ground, we get into, a giant hall where we sleep on cots with 200 or 300 other guys until our little huts are available to us. We get in there, we are taking over from the Army. I'm in the Air Force at the time, and we meet the Army surgeons. I think we had some food. We went to the OR to help with the case, and the first thing we see is this, maybe 22, 23-year-old kid from the Canadian Special Forces. He's got a full beard because Special Forces guys want to blend in, and they're the guys authorized to grow a beard. Normally in the military, you got to be clean shaven. So these guys are in a beard, and the guy comes in, and he got hit by a landmine, but boom, both legs are gone above the knee. He's got bilateral AKAs or above knee amputations. Wounds are fresh. You see, we're in there cleaning it up, bandaging up, and this guy we ship off to Landstuhl in Germany. And this was every day for us. Every day, horrific trauma. But I remember one of the very first patients we got. So we get this kid, he's 16, maybe 17 years old. Turns out he's Pakistani. Turns out he's a bad guy. He's a kid that was caught. Well, what he was doing was he was setting up an IED, an improvised explosive device, roadside bomb designed to kill, maim our guys, right? So he's a bad guy. And what he did was, while he was setting it up, it went off, and he blew himself up, basically. And so what happened was he blew off both of his legs, at about the knee level. He blew off one of his arms pretty much above the elbow, and he blew off another arm, just most of the wrist, but some of his fingers were still there. So we've got this guy, 17-year-old kid who's, obviously his life has significantly changed. Is he a true believer? Is he a guy that hates Americans? Did he join the fight because he really just hates what we stand for? Or what a lot of times happened is the Taliban would go to families and say, hey kid, fight for us, we're going to kill your family. This is their recruitment tool. It wasn't the draft, it wasn't the volunteer army. They would force people. And so you don't know. So, and a 17-year-old kid is not Osama bin Laden. He's not the mastermind. And so it's hard to, he's someone's kid. You have children. You got a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid whose arms and legs are blown off. I mean, it's a really tragic situation. But as a physician, you take care of that. It doesn't matter. You're not. My job is not to judge people. My job in that situation was to provide the best care that I could. Myself and my partner, Dr. Tom Large, excellent guy, by the way, excellent surgeon out in North Carolina. So we did this day in and day out. So let's talk a little about what happened to this fella. So when you're in this situation and you're in constant trauma, you're seeing little kids with arms and legs blown off, you're seeing the worst injuries imaginable, you're seeing people with their faces blown off with pus coming out of their eyes, you see these horrific burn wounds, these just absolute tragic. When you see people coming in where their legs blown off and you can actually see their spine, you can see their acetabulum, you can see their pelvis, and these are people that live. Not to mention the ones that get killed, but these are people that live. So you develop a coping mechanism. And for us, it was, just trying to stay positive, trying to stay upbeat, trying to use humor, trying to see the humor in situation. And, you know, we had a lot of locals we took care of. We took care of Americans, NATO forces, Afghan army. We took care of civilians. And we took care of some of the enemies. We took care of some Taliban. And, you know, a lot of the Muslim names were very difficult to distinguish because they had very common names, same common sounding names and the same endings, and it was always the same thing. And we had a really hard time distinguishing who was who. And the patient shifting around was very quick. I mean, you could be in the OR and coming to check on your patient and they'd be gone. What happened to my patient? Oh, we ran out of room. We had to ship them off somewhere else. So it was this constant turnover trying to keep the capacity of the hospital so we could handle more casualties, more fresh casualties. And so it was hard to keep the names straight. And so a lot of times we just developed nicknames. And this is a sort of a gallows humor type of thing. And it wasn't to be offensive to these people. It was just to help us, you know, who would know who we were talking about. So for instance, we had a guy with a liver laceration. So, you know, the liver is considered part of the hepatic system. And so liver laceration, we called it hepatocrac adula, because a lot of times their name ends with doula. And so hepatocrac adula was liver lac guy, you know. And so we had all these kind of silly names, but, you know, it worked. And, you know, it just kind of kept us sane there. And this particular guy, with all of his arms and legs blown off, we called him Stumpy. I mean, and I know that sounds offensive, but, you know, in the time and the situation, it became, you know, kind of a nickname, and kind of a, you know, we kind of use that as, and people smiled, not to make fun of the guy, just knew who he was. And, you know, during our meetings, we had a meeting every single morning to talk about the patients. We'd go through, the plastic surgeons would talk, and the internal medicine guys would talk, and the critical care guys would talk, and we would talk, and we'd talk about the plan for the day for the patients, talk about what we're doing in the operating room that day, and so on and so forth. But Stumpy was one, they got kind of bothered by that, so we ended up renaming him RLX4, and sounds like a C3PO type of name, right? RLX4. What that stands for is residual limb times 4, because when you have an amputation, the technical term, I guess, rather than stump, which many people use stump. I mean, that's not offensive at all, but the technical term is residual limb. So RLX4. So anyway, what happened to RLX4 or Stumpy? And so, as an enemy of war, when he was transported, you know, this guy with no arms and no legs, they put a bag over his head, a black bag over his head, earphones so he couldn't hear. They would, you know, they couldn't put shackles on him because there's really nothing to shackle at this point. But the normal movement of prisoners was that way: shackled, covered, can't hear, can't see. And that is to prevent them from knowing what we're doing, knowing what we're up to, you know, seeing, so they can't share that with their potential enemies, know the layout of the hospital. We don't want that, because we don't want them to have an in if they want to create an act of terror in the hospital. And that was certainly something that does occur and can occur. So, you know, he's being transported this way. I remember the first time we took him to the OR, kid's terrified, doesn't know what we're going to do. Are we going to kill him? He doesn't know, right? So we ended up taking him to the OR, gosh, 10 times at least. And one of the things we learned with him, is he's one of our very first patients, is these horrific war blast wounds are so much more than you anticipate. You know, you see the blown off tissue and you see the horrific damage, and when you're doing amputations, you have to remove all that tissue, cut it. But what you don't realize is you can get a blast wound in the foot, and that shrapnel can travel through the tissue, up the leg, all the way up to the groin sometimes, just because of the sheer force in that. So you don't anticipate that. And so, you know, you're constantly having to clean the wounds, wash the wounds out, revise, cut out dead tissue. And with him early on, we thought, well, we'll clean it out real good like we normally do in the U.S. You clean it out real good, maybe once, maybe you can bring it back, close up the wounds, and let it heal. We tried that because we didn't know better at the time. And we saw that, you know, all of a sudden the wound is starting to get infected because there's such more damage than you anticipate with these war wounds. And so what we ended up doing is wash out, trim multiple times. And we had a rule: you clean them out at least 3 times, 3 operations before you can close the wounds. And that seemed to work well. And so we got Stumpy, you know, healed up. We got his wounds to heal. The kid, you know, he was smiling. He was kind of still a happy kid. You know, he was very happy to be with us, even though he was in enemy war. And we probably treated him better than he was treated, you know, coming from some poor village in Pakistan. Probably had better food than the best food he's had in his life. I mean, there's a good chance of that. And so, and the staff liked him. He was a very actually pleasant kid when you talked to him through the translator. So it's hard to, hate on somebody like that, even though they're an enemy combatant. And so after about 2 months, we get RLX4 or Snuppy healed up, and at this point our normal thing is to turn him over to the next level of care. And in Afghanistan, there's not a lot of prosthetics. There's not a lot of prostheticians that are going to make arms and legs for this guy. And unfortunately, in that part of the world, if you have an injury, it's often seen as God's plan. And some people that have a limb removed are maybe considered pariahs and outcasts because God did that to them because they're not a nice person. And so we know that his fate in the world is not going to be good. And we had people that would come in that had horrible, unsavable legs and, so on and so forth, blast wounds, infections, horrible infections. The only real answer was to remove the leg, and they would refuse. They would not do it because they did not want to be a pariah. They did not want to be cast out in God's eyes and become a pariah the rest of their life. So, we had to deal with that. I mean, in this case, he has no choice because the bomb took it off of him. So anyway, so we release this guy after 2 months of taking care of him, getting to know him. We turn him over to the Afghan army, and they take him out, shoot him in the head, kill him. And obviously, that's disturbing, all that time. And that happened multiple times. I mean, this is something that war is not fun. When it hits the fan, it's very real. Kind of a bummer message for Sunday, but I wanted to, just kind of put a little more impact on what's out there, what goes on in the world when we talk about diet wars, which are really kind of meaningless. Not meaningless, they're important, but there are things that are much more impactful. And as I get attacked by various people on their keyboards and so on and so forth, that stuff is just so minor to me. Anyway, guys, have a good Sunday. Sorry this is a bit of a bummer message. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about some other stuff. Like, subscribe. Let me know if you want to hear more of these stories or if they're too disturbing. Let me know if you want me to add it to the audiobook. I got a lot of stuff on different stuff about healthcare and life in general that might be of interest to people. But anyway, thanks guys for listening. Subscribe. Thanks for the subscriptions. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.